Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the NCIC Podcast. Of course, we cannot be here without acknowledging our partners. That is the Korea International Cooperation Agency and the United Nations Development Program. Asanteni Tena Sana. Today on the show, we do have Miss Mohammed Maimuna. She is a representative from the Interreligious Council of Kenya. Miss Maimuna, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Maybe you can start by telling us what exactly is it that you do at or for IRCK?
IRCK is the Interreligious Council of Kenya.
Right.
And it comprises of all councils in regards to religion. So I work for an organization called National Muslim Leaders Forum that is part of the IRCK.
All right. And I think you mentioned earlier on that you're also a student leader.
Yes. I'm also a Muslim student leader for the Association of Muslims in Universities and Colleges in Kenya.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Then you can let us understand, in your own words, of course, the role of faith leaders in building cohesion amongst the young people, to be specific.
So basically, as young Kenyans, we've been growing in a country where political, economic, and just basically issues that are happening in Kenya. And these clashes have been going on for so long.
Right.
So we see that political leaders are striving for power and the normal people are just suffering. So it's up to the faith leaders now to come on board to start speaking about peace, accountability, integrity, and for us to choose leaders with integrity, not just on the pulpits, because most of us spend most of our times on the phones, right? And the easiest way to reach people, not only the youth and all, basically just anyone, is through online areas like Twitter, TikTok, and everything. So I urge the faith leaders to start preaching and talking about how it's up to everyone to come forward and work on accountability and governance in our leaders.
So from your statement, one would suggest that perhaps religious leaders are not doing enough. They're doing something, it's just not enough to ensure that they are involved in the conversation, they are involved in understanding the young people, and most importantly, they are or should be at least involved in directing young folk into the direction that indeed they should be taken. Yep. Do you believe that that is a true representation of that question?
It actually is a true representation of your question. But the thing is, all that religious leaders can do is guide and all. It's also up to us to actually comprehend what they're trying to tell us. And in as much as we are young people, we actually respect our leaders, the older people and all. Yeah. So I feel like it's a two-way traffic. Religious leaders should come forward and speak about all these things, but also us as young people, we should be ready to comprehend and respect their views and come to an understanding.
Yeah, because in the recent past, actually, in the very recent past, one would say that perhaps the young people are no longer as interested or involved in religious activities, whether it is in the mosques or the churches or the temples, for one reason or another. Maybe they are apathetic to what religion represents, I don't know, or maybe they just do not connect with it as perhaps the older folk used to connect with it. Do you feel the same way? Because whenever I'm looking at churches on Sundays, for example, because I go to church, I don't see as many young people as probably I would see them 20, 30 years ago.
That is very true, but also I do not think that it's foolproof, because it's according to at that particular session. Maybe young people prefer to go for morning sessions or evening sessions and all. So it is true, and right now, in the world right now, there are very many distractions, very many things to do, and people do not really connect with how older people used to connect with religion and how they used to worship and all. For example, churches,
Yes.
Most do not see the need to go to church every Sunday, but that does not mean that they do not pray or they do not conform to a higher being and all. So, and in the mosques, most people do not pray every prayer in the mosque, but they try to pray the Friday prayer, or maybe they pray in a different mosque. So young people have just found different ways to conform to their faith. They're not diminishing how the older people used to pray and all. It's just that we have different ways and all. Yeah.
You see, the funny thing, the interesting thing about religion is that it remains the same yesterday, today, and
Yeah.
tomorrow, or at least we believe it should stay that way. And it's very difficult to change traditions and norms about a certain faith, even with the changing times. But again, that could be its own undoing. And correct me if I'm wrong, that how things were being done some 50 years ago, for example, how that religion was presented 50 years ago, right now it might not necessarily connect with the youth of today, because like you said in the previous statements, youth nowadays are mostly online. They like watching their TikToks and their YouTube, and connecting on Instagram, following up on the fashion, and perhaps they have been because a long time ago Instagram wasn't there, so now they are more distracted by that Instagram. Yes, but also I feel they are not necessarily distracted by Instagram. They just do not find a very interesting need to necessarily connect with their religious institutions, because their religious institutions just do not want to conform with the times, therefore connect with them. I don't know. I feel like that's what is happening on the ground right now. People are rejecting quote unquote religion. That is why someone will tell you, me, I believe in God. It's just that I will not say that I'm a Catholic or I'm a Muslim or I'm a Hindu. Mi na mi ni tu Mungu. Period. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, from my perspective, which may differ from a lot of people, because I'm a Muslim,
Yes.
and Alhamdulillah, I try to be very close to my religion. But what you're saying is true. I feel like it's because of a lot of exposure to a lot of things, and basically humans have the need to always be learning about things. So learning about a lot of things and more makes you doubt the things that have been there for a long time. So we can only help in that by talking about religion all the time, preaching about it, but we cannot really take someone and change them. All we can do as religious leaders and all is to remind people of what it really is about.
Yeah.
And if they do not want to subscribe to a certain notion or a certain faith, it's okay, as long as they believe in one God and all, because
Yeah.
people have different perspectives. But for me, I believe in Allah,
Yeah.
and I'm a Muslim, and it's really nice, guys. So
So now here lies in the problem in the statement that I presented.
yeah.
Because most of our religious leaders are the older folk. They're the people who are in their 50s, 60s, whatever. Those are the priests, they're the imams, they're the pastors. And they present a worldview that doesn't connect with the younger generation. Again, we're now coming back to that problem. So when we want to have that transgenerational conversation, and some of the places we can have them public places, and public places include the churches, the mosques, the religious places, the spaces that we go and worship. So if we cannot connect with that generation, how difficult or easy is it going to be for us to have these conversations? Because from where I sit, the young people are like, hey, you guys, nyinyi wazee bana, amutuelewi. Yes, and these young folk, by the way, are from all the faiths that we have in this country.
Yeah.
How can we bridge that gap?
I feel like it's an issue with both generations. The older generation feel like when we are talking about things, we are maybe arguing, and we feel like they do not want to hear us, but we also are not hearing what they're trying to say to us, because they're older than us, so they've lived long to see things, right?
They're
But
wiser.
also we are also in a different generation. How things are going right now is not what you expect things to have been going before or anything. So I feel like it's two-way traffic. They need to listen to us, we need to listen to them. They should talk with us and not to us all the time. So if we're speaking about conversations, it should not be about we really need to help these young people,
Yep.
for them to just be like they're going astray. Come, listen to what we have to say. We have solutions for things, because just a few months ago, the country almost came to a halt, right?
Yes.
And why? It's because the young generation was done with how things were going. because people are talking about dialogue with the government and all. But we felt like that it's no longer time for dialogue.
Yeah.
So we have different ways to go about things. So why don't we just come together for them to listen to us, we listen to them, and for them to talk with us and not to us. Yeah.
As a student leader, for instance, have you tried having a conversation with the people that you lead and ask them, how they would like to have that transgenerational conversation? Because if we follow what we have been seeing on media, whether social or traditional media, the youth are saying, look, we don't want to have this conversation because you already know what we want. Remember during last year's Mandamano, they even told Raila Odinga, Kando, we'll handle this. And even when Raila joined the government to form the broad-based government, you could see a lot of anger in the streets and online. And someone would actually say, if we use that only as a yardstick, that it's like these people are not interested in a conversation. And by people, I mean the young people. They're not interested in a conversation. Yet, if we're being honest about it and critical about it, that conversation needs to be held. So I don't know if you've engaged them, and probably they give you ideas on how they would want that to happen.
Okay, the thing is, if we take that example, for instance, I feel like there are times for conversations and there are times for actions to actually help show that you're willing, like, to have a conversation that is going to be fruitful. Because we've been having conversations for so long, and we were saying that what we want, right? So us coming to have a conversation at that particular time was not going to help, because we had already aired everything that is needed to be done for us to have a change in this country. So on my perspective, I feel like there are times for conversations and there are times for actions. If something would have been done at that particular time to show that you're willing to have conversations, because most of the time people want to have conversations, but it's just for formalities, like, I just talked to this young person, I tried to understand them, but I could not understand them. But you also went to the perspective that, let me just talk to them. It's just conversation. And we want comprehensive conversations where people actually understand what is needed and are willing to act on it.
Right. And like I said, and that is why people will go to places of worship, whether it's the SDAs on Saturday, go to their churches, or the Muslims to the on Fridays, and other Christians on Sunday, because at the end of the day, you constantly need to have that conversation with your God, and to understand deeper matters of your faith. And that is why I was saying that indeed, as much as people are saying that, look, this needs to be done, and we have already told you point A, B, Baka said this is what we want done. But at the end of the day, I think there are some things critical to governance that need to be talked about. For example, matters on integrity and leadership, matters of public participation, that I feel like the youth, by the if we're being honest, apart from the few Mandamano tumeona kutoka last year and this year, we do not actively participate in even the law-making process of this country. And that is why at one point that conversation will need to be held. We also need to detach ourselves, for instance, from issues of tribal politics. And yes, the young people brand themselves as partyless, tribeless, and leaderless, but how sure are we that come election in 2027, for example, will we detach ourselves from from tribalism? I don't know. Do you feel like come the election, people are going to detach themselves from tribalism?
I feel like people have the urge to detach themselves from tribalism. But the thing is, these are concurrent mistakes, okay? We have grown up in tribal issues and all. So most of the times, it's easier to speak when you're like outside the fence and all, and you're not already at that particular point. So I feel like we just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of people are saying the young folk, the Gen Zs, are an untested constituency.
Yeah.
But I feel like we are being tested every single time. And perhaps this is a conversation for a different forum, but I feel like they do fail in the test that so far they have been given towards the run-up to the general election. Now, on matters faith leaders, what is their role in civic education? Because they preach faith, they preach the religions that they are subscribed to. But in terms of what they deliver to the people civically and also political education, what's their role?
So basically, in the scriptures, in Quran and all, how there's literally a verse for everything that is happening in life. I feel like faith leaders should just take those particular verses and make them to conform to what is happening right now, like rather than just giving the scriptures and delivering them just like that. But if you give a verse and it's about political governance, remind people about political governance. If it's a verse that is actually relating with accountability, I do not know about the Bible that well, but in Islam, every Friday, people are required to give sermons. Imams are required to give sermons on what is happening at that particular time in that particular region, so that people can have solutions on how to go about things. Okay, the verses do not have specifically when something happens in South Sea, do this, but something happened in a particular area at that particular time that is actually relating to what is happening right now. So it's a role for religious leaders to come on board and give sermons in a way that people understand, that we understand. That is why I was really speaking about how they should go to online platforms, like have podcasts. If they're giving sermons, for them to record videos for them to be shared, someone may just stumble upon it while scrolling on TikTok or on YouTube and everything and see it. So we really need to change the ways in which we are delivering the sermons, on which we're advising people, and make them relate to how we understand and how the world is right now.
I feel like the way you've said it is an ideal way of handling issues, but do you feel like they actually deliver on that, and are they honest about the conversations they have in the spaces of in the places of worship, or do they also recline back to their either tribal cocoons or political cocoons? Because at the end of the day, everyone is political, whether we like it or not. Regardless of the religion that you subscribe to, at the end of the day, you have a political agenda, you have a political feeling. Do you feel like sometimes it is like what they say is true to what they actually believe in?
Okay, so I feel like that is subjective to each and every person,
Right.
because as you've said, people have political agendas and they're different to everyone, and how they may be preaching may be inclined. But maybe as religious institutions, people should not be allowed to influence people towards a particular political party, but just advise accordingly, like on matters integrity. Let the person be the one to, choose what they want, to understand what integrity is. Like as religious leaders, we should really incline from advising for people to go to a particular political party or subscribing to a certain person. I feel like places of faith are places for us to remind each other rather than trying to change people's mind on things and all.
Okay, on matters hate speech, we see a lot of political rhetoric out here, and sometimes our political leaders will, they're human and they will fail, and sometimes they fail terribly, and they go out there and they say things that one would look and say, is that even a parent of someone? Because what they said, it makes you cringe. For instance, there's one political leader who at the height of maandamano ya last year alisema, if I were the president, bana, 500 people would be dying daily from this maandamano, so that ikue funzo. Someone else, I think in Rift Valley, said, watu wa Nairobi tutawafunza, a lesson will do ABCD. And you sit and you look at that person and you ask yourself, But then again, when you look at our religious leaders, it's like they're not saying anything. They're not pointing fingers. They're not calling out these people. Even next Sunday or next Friday, the sermon is done and people go home as though someone didn't say that they would have killed people. I don't know. What do you make of that?
So basically, first, it's very sad that people find the courage to go to public spaces and speak about such things and walk off freely because they feel like they won't be having any repercussions and all. So religious leaders can only remind people,
right?
Because we are going to be sitting here right now as we're speaking. Other people may even misquote us and all.
Yes.
So the religious leaders can only preach about all these things, and because if the religious leader goes to the pulpit and starts saying, the person that spoke about this and this, we see you and all, won't that also be a hate speech?
I mean, yeah, it depends on also how you look at it. But
Like
yes,
if the person actually goes
Yeah.
and starts quoting people in the religious spaces rather than focusing on, like rather than calling out someone
Yes.
in religious spaces,
Right.
why don't just religious leaders speak about things that are currently happening without quoting people? Like just say to the topic of today is about hate speech and all, and then give like how it's not right in Christianity, how it's not
Yes.
right in Islam,
Yes.
rather than calling out people. Because I feel like as religious leaders, we should not stoop to the level of certain people that will actually speak to people vibaya or call out people and all.
Right.
And something else about that is there are some things that religious leaders cannot do,
Okay.
but
Such
the
as?
government can.
Okay.
So, and IRCK actually partakes in decision making of the country. So religious leaders can speak to the government and call them out in higher places, like rather than, because at the pulpits, religious leaders will just advise and all. But who call, like when they're sitting with these people,
Right.
call them out for what they've been doing. Like you're doing this, this, and this. Do not like encourage them when they come to your churches or mosques. We're like, oh my God, he's here, he's
Yes.
here. Why
We
are we
elevate
doing
them.
that? We're elevating them, and they're literally doing things that are not right. Like religious leaders, when they're sitting with people of high positions, political leaders, government, people in high positions that we feel like are not working with integrity, we call them out for it. Because if we start doing that and people are communal, right?
Yes.
They'll feel like they'll have the need to actually be accepted by the communities at a particular point. So it may be a way for them to try and do better.
Right.
And also in decision-making processes, the religious leaders need to be heard. If there's a section where religious leaders are being given chances to speak, let them speak with integrity because they are there for the people.
Right.
They're the voices of the people. Rather than being inclined to your own personal vendettas and all, speak for the people, speak with integrity and what the religion actually asks you to do.
All right. Fair enough. On governance, right now we are seeing a lot of conversations around, by-elections and the general elections. Do you feel like the young people are ready to actually take up key positions in governance? We're talking about not just MCA, not just MP, but even higher up, the Senate positions, governorship, and even CSs, if that chance is availed. Do you feel like young people can actually take up these positions and do something
Yes.
substantial?
Okay, I have to make something clear. We do not just want any young person at the movie aende akuwe MCA.
Siwezi kuwa MCA, unasema siwezi kuwa MCA?
Okay, so it depends with your credentials and all.
Okay.
So basically, we want people with integrity, people that have credentials to work in a particular area. You cannot be an MCA and you do not even have any knowledge about politics or something, and you want to be an MCA just because maybe you have money or connections, you just stumbled upon something. We do not want the same things to be repeated,
Right.
okay? Because if we put the same people just because they are young, but they have the same characters and behaviors and us repeating the same mistakes, it's going to go on, and then now we'll be the older generation. The young people will now want other people, so it's going to be a cycle of things. So as young people, we want people that will be put there to be people with credentials, people with integrity, accountability and all. So we don't want just any young person aende akae hapo. We want someone that has the credentials and actually the urge to work for people. But that is tricky because people say you're just speaking like that because you're outside,
Yes.
you don't know what is going to happen when you're inside because it's a whole system of things. But I feel like young people are ready to take up those positions.
Yes.
And make changes. Because according to the political amendment of 2022, it stated that 30% is supposed to be for the youth. And do you see it right now?
Not necessarily, but my concern actually heading towards 2027 is that they do not have a clear strategy how to achieve that. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, I honestly do not see a proper strategy that will help them achieve that, because if you're partyless, how do you organize yourselves? If you're leaderless, how will you present yourselves to these key positions? How are we able to identify, for example, Miss Maimuna is able to hold this particular position? So you see where I'm coming from and where I'm going. If they continue being amorphous as they are right now, might end up, actually it will be easier to divide and rule them, because when something is amorphous you can literally just hit it smack in the middle
Yeah.
and itatapaka kwa kila direction. So how will they achieve this? Because I honestly don't see a strategy here.
Okay, then I feel like that there's a need for us to re-strategize, because as I say, there's a time and time for everything. At that time, we did not want conversations, we just wanted action. And right now, if we feel like for us to have changes in 2027, it is true. We need people to step up and follow the right ways, because for you to apply for something, you need to be from a political party, you need to have certain credentials, you need to be in a certain position in a certain political party. So as young people, we need to re-strategize and see how we're going to be going about this. Like, if Mbuvi wants to be an MCA,
Yes. Governor. Let's go with governor. But yeah.
if Mbuvi wants to be a governor, hey, Mbuvi, like Mike Sonko, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
So if Mbuvi wants to be a governor,
Yes.
rather than being amorphous, as you've said, I feel like we need to re-strategize, because we cannot achieve anything by continuing with the routes that we're going through right now. So young people, you need to re-strategize. We need to come together and find how we are going to be in those positions. The same way we are able to cope and look at how things are going about and find out the issues, shared with other people how the issues are, we are going to figure it out too. But time is running out. So the people that want to be in those positions, please figure it out and take the necessary repercussions to actually reach those positions.
Yeah, because again, speaking of transgenerational conversations, we will, whether we like it or not, that conversation has to happen. It might not be now. We might reject it as much as we want, and it is within our right to reject it. But even as time goes by, it will need to happen, because what do that older generation offer? They offer mentorship and they offer wisdom. Right now, the wisdom that young people have, it cannot be compared to the wisdom that people who are in their 60s, for example, have, because they lived through they lived through some of the most tumultuous moments of this young nation, because we're only 62 years old as a republic, and they saw things from a different perspective. And if we need to take up leadership as young people, we will need to talk to these people, because we do not understand the dynamics of leadership at that level, and especially national leadership and governance, to be specific. So either way, it will need to happen, and that cannot happen while we are still leaderless, and that definitely won't happen when we are partyless, because who are we going to invite to the table? They have to come from somewhere. And we cannot say that tutakuwa na Wakamba peke yao. Kwa mfano, hatuwezi sema we'll have only Luos in this conversation. There needs to be an organization of sorts. Yes. So I don't know, in your opinion, how can we organize ourselves so that we can have a seat at the table of that transgenerational conversation?
As I said, we just need to re-strategize. The people that want to partake in this, the same way we were able to mobilize people from all over the country to speak one voice and all, those leaders need to sit down, re-strategize, and basically come up with other ways to go about this. Because, as you've said, transgenerational conversations need to be had. People need to sit down and talk. They have a lot of mentorship to offer. We have a lot of ways we have to offer in how to go about governance and accountability. So the point is, we need to re-strategize as soon as possible.
Yeah. And the role of religious institutions in bringing together and perhaps healing, for the sake of moving forward, we need to heal of old wounds, what we would like to call historical injustices. What is the role of religious leaders in that, ensuring that there's cohesion towards that particular direction of healing historical injustices?
So basically, as young people, we are now paying for things that we didn't conform to, and also some of the things we didn't even go through. So I feel like religious leaders need to come and remind people of all the injustices, to give hope to the older people, and be sorry about how they went about that and how they went through all that, and us to also to be made to understand what they went through. We cannot fully understand what they went through, but I feel like it's just about speaking about it, reminding young people about what happened, and for us to understand the older generation and where they're coming from, and for the older generation to understand us and where we are coming from.
Yeah.
So the role of religious leaders is to inform, remind, and explain all these things in their sermons and all. Because there are people that are not even there in 2007 or something. There are people that were not there in the 1990s.
Yes.
So we do not understand what they went through and why they choose to go about these things. And basically, if we understand that, we'll be able to even have a better conversation rather than just seeing that we're on opposite sides. Because
Yes.
this country is for the both of us, like the older generation and us. So yeah, the transgenerational conversation needs to be had. So yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like we are paying for the sins of our fathers, for lack of a better word, because they are the ones who fought politically back in the day, during the times that they were being detained and being done whatever it is they were done. And if you look at some of the major political parties that we have right now, they actually came from that period. And we are right now, and I'm talking about our generation and perhaps the generations that are are emerging. It's like they're fighting that war that was fought by our forefathers. Yeah, so perhaps again religious leaders need to come and separate us from that yoke, because we are actually we have extended those chains of bondage to us, yet they actually don't belong to us. And young people, at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, if we will not have it transgenerational there, we might need to have it amongst our generations,
Yeah.
so that we can actually find and forge a way forward. So in that regard, how can we hold also our religious leaders to account so that they can speak truth to power?
Okay, the thing is, some of us have even like lost faith in religious leaders because some of them are very open about the political party they're in, or how they're trying to influence people to go about things, or how they're tribal about certain things. So it's up to, I feel like it's an individual decision. Okay, we cannot tell someone, do not listen to so and so because he subscribes to this. Our duty is to listen because alhamdulillah, our parents gave us, our generation, the gift of education, and it's something that they've given to us. That is why we're able to comprehend things. That is why we are questioning things right now and all. And also the older people, maybe they're acting like this because of the wounds that they suffered, how they went about things years ago, because it was the only way they knew.
Yeah.
But right now things are complex, and like with how we have information and all, we're able to navigate through things differently. So for religious leaders, also young people, why do we have to wait for people that are like in their 50s or 40s to preach about these things? The same way in movie you're here speaking about this, I feel like young people should also come forward and speak about it in a religious aspect too, because Kenya is a country that people are very religious. So if you speak to them in that aspect, being someone that actually understands where they're coming from and all. So young people, please go into your scriptures, read about it, go into the history, understand how the older generation acted the way they acted, or how and why they're acting the way they're acting. And also for the older generation to come forward and understand that there is need for change, and for us to use different ways to go about things, because the old ways are not working anymore.
Yeah.
So how do we twitch and like maybe make some changes in the older ways of how to go about things?
And I like the fact that you said that our parents blessed us with
Education.
with education, and now we have the power of discernment. Yeah, so we can tell what should be where.
Yeah.
But do you think that young people have a modicum of influence to determine the politics of this country?
Yeah, do you know how many young people are in the country right now? The youth in Kenya are actually at a very high percentage in the demography. So we are in a position to change everything. Because let's just take, for instance, what has been happening in the early this year, right? So even older people started understanding that we've been fighting for so long for leaders about in regards to tribes, but are those leaders really working for us just because we're in a particular tribe? Do we really need a Kikuyu leader on top, or do we really need a Kamba leader on top, or do we really need a Somali leader on top for things to go, rather than people that have the integrity and credentials for things to work? So I feel like we have the power of education, we have the power of internet, we have the power of discernment. So young people, by basically just sharing information, discerning information, and educating our parents, the older generation, on how to go about things differently, has really helped.
Okay.
I feel like we can also see changes from maybe if you have your parent that was like, I cannot go without voting for someone in my tribe, but right now they're like, no, enough is enough. We need competent leaders.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation, rather. I've actually learned a lot from your perspectives, and I think perhaps if we can apply a lot of what is being discussed here, perhaps then we can have a better country. And of course, that transgenerational conversation, which we definitely want to have. So we thank you so much for availing yourself. And karibia tena, njoo tuongee, tuweze kuzungumza. Naam.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. Here we have come to the end of the show, and like I said, this is a podcast that we would like to have. As far as the conversations involved, we want to change how things perhaps are being done going forward, as far as the dialogues that we are hoping to have in future. Still, this is just the beginning. Let's see how it goes going forward. A big shout out to our partners again, the United Nations Development Program and the Korea International Cooperation Agency, and of course NCIC, where we are actually hosting this podcast. So as we come to an end, see you on the next one.